So hello, everyone, and welcome to this practice test webinar about 5 vital sessions from the State of Testing Report of 2018. My name is Joel, and I'm Practice Chief Solution Architect. I want to thank you very much for joining us this afternoon, evening, morning, depending where you are on the globe. So first of all, a little introduction. A little bit about me in this case. So as I already said, my name is Joel, and I am a testing professional. I have been doing testing for the last 22 years, based on the number that is written over there. And as most of us, I got to testing by accident, and very soon after being a tester for a number of years, and I became a test lead, a QA manager. And after that, I just started a little bit blogging and speaking. And today, I work for a great company called PractiTest, where I am the Chief Solution Architect in PractiTest. And I also serve as the QA manager of the team, where everyone in the team actually does testing, and I'm in charge of managing that. And there are a couple of additional projects that I try to do for the community, one of them being the state of testing that I'm going to be talking about the results today, but also, in case you haven't heard about it, something called the Online Test Conf. It's a free online testing conference. We just had our last one about a month ago, and we're already planning the next one for the fall. So just go to onlinetestconf.com, and you can actually read a little bit more about it. Couple words about the company sponsoring this webinar, PractiTest, the company that I work for. In case you haven't seen the product or heard about the company, we provide a great SaaS QA management solution. It's a great system. If you don't have a QA management solution, you're working in Excel or Word documents, or you have a QA management solution and you don't really like it, then you can go ahead and take a look into PractiTest. It's a very cool system. It's simple and intuitive, but on the other hand, so also very professional and flexible, and it lets you customize it the way you need. Integrates with almost anything outside, backtracking systems, CI systems, every automation tool. And we do have the best support in the system. And again, it's being used by quite a lot of very, very nice companies out there. For those of you who have seen PractiTest, but maybe not so much in the last couple of months, and I promise this is the last slide, not about the webinar, there are some amazing new features that have been added in the last months. Well, the one that you see in the middle, it's a new Kanban board that we added to the system so that you can manage all of your tasks and bugs and test sets and everything using a Kanban board approach. Within PractiTest, we also added some months ago exploratory testing support within PractiTest. And a feature that is not new, but I still love it every single day that we use it, is our very, very flexible dashboards that let you generate basically QA intelligence out of the information in your project. So once again, if you're not aware of PractiTest, go ahead and take a look into it. We have a free validation license on the site, and it's a pretty cool system. And again, very, very recommended. But enough about practice, enough about me. Let's actually talk about what we came here for in this webinar. And we're going to be talking about lessons learned from the state of testing. But maybe not everyone on this webinar is aware of the state of testing and what it is. So first of all, as the name actually says, what is the state of testing? Well, the idea might be something similar to, for those of you who are in the US, the State of the Union address. For those of you who are not in the US or are not aware of the State of the Union address, the State of the Union, it's basically a speech, if you want, that the President of the United States provides every single year to the people in the United States. It's not, obviously, it's given in both chambers of Congress and to a lot of additional people in politics, but it's intended to be given to the people of the United States, basically explaining about the state of the union, the state of the United States, saying, hey, this is what has happened up to now, this is what we want to do in the year to come, and this is how we plan to do it. So it's a kind of a high-level overview of the reality and the plans for the executive wing of the United States government, to be named and to be said what's going on in there. So basically a report of what's been done and what's going to happen. It's similar to the state of testing. But if we look at it, we didn't come up with the state of testing after seeing a State of the Union. The inspiration for the state of testing actually comes from another document. I don't want to take the credit for it. We didn't invent it. We invented the state of testing, but we invented it after being aware of another document called the state of agile. The state of agile, and this is the latest version of it. It's something that at the beginning was sent by version 1. It's a survey and a report that is done annually for 12 years now by a company called version 1. I think they were acquired by CollabNet, and so you can see this CollabNet version 1. And what these guys are doing with the state of agile is basically saying, hey, this is what's going on in agile practices, on agile methodologies, on the world that is working with agile. And they talk about the trends, and they have a survey and a very, very nice report that, as you can see, they have been doing for 12 years. So the story is very simple. As I told you before, I have a blog, the QA Intelligence blog. And I remember I was trying to write a document, a new blog post for the state of, for the QA Intelligence blog. And I was looking at some statistics. I wanted to get, I don't remember what statistics about adoption of exploratory testing or management or what numbers I was looking for. And I couldn't find anything similar to the state of agile. On testing, I was looking basically for a report saying, hey, where can I get information for the state, for testing, for the testing community? I was looking, there were a couple of things that were very localized. There were some things about automation, but there was nothing that was global. There was nothing that was giving like trends of what was going on in the community as a whole. So what I did is said, hey, I'm sure that I'm missing something. So I went to a very good friend of mine, Lalit Kumar. He's the chief editor for Tea Time with Testers. Again, a great magazine. If you haven't heard of it, go ahead and take a look at it. And it says like, Lalit, do we have anything similar to State of Agile in testing? And he also looked and looked and looked, and he couldn't find anything. So after being very frustrated with that, I turned to Lalit and said, hey, you know what? There's nothing like that. Why don't we do it? Why don't we do something similar to State of Agile, but within testing? And that is how the state of testing actually came to place. And we have been running the state of testing yearly, 2013, 15, 16, 17, and this year 18. The weird thing between 2013 and 15 is because the first one was run at the end of 2013, the second one at the beginning of 2015. And so we try to organize the numbers so that they fit. We're doing it for the year that we're running the survey. And so we run the survey at the beginning of the year, and that is the date of the state of testing. But we have been running it yearly. Now, what is the state of testing? The state of testing is, to the best of our knowledge, it's the largest and longest running survey of testing and QA professionals. It is a survey. We publish the survey around January, sometimes a little bit towards December, but it's going to be running the whole January. We're going to be capturing as much information as we can. And then we put together a report. The objective is to publish the report around April. Reality sometimes is May. This year it was very, very late. It came out in July. And what we're trying to do is to provide a vision of what's going on that testing community worldwide. It is community-driven and oriented, so we don't charge anything. You can download it, you can use it, reuse it, publish it if you want. We have quite a lot of people from the community working with us, so it's been translated to a large number of languages. You can see translations for the 2017 version online already. People are already translating the one that we released for 2018. And up to today, since the beginning, it has been a collaboration between the QA Intelligence blog, this is my blog, and the Tea Time with Testers magazine that, as I mentioned, Lalit actually runs. Now, we are very much helped by the community. Obviously, the more people that answer for as many countries around the world, the better. So we try to work with a lot of bloggers and tweets and everyone who can actually help us to spread the word about what's going on. But it's not only about spreading the word. One of the things that we decided to do from the very beginning was not to think that we're the best experts on deciding what questions to ask and how to analyze the results. And so every year we have what we call a review committee. And the idea of the review committee is to bring people, to invite people who we believe, myself and Lalit, that have experience and knowledge and insights into what's going on in the testing world. And so to help us try to review the questions that we're asking, see if there are more relevant questions that we need to ask, see if Maybe the answers, we need to include new different types of answers based on new technologies that are going out or methodologies that are going out. And once these surveys reviewed by them, we publish it, obviously. And when we have the results, then we also come back to them and we say, hey, look into the results. This is what we think about it. Do you see other stuff we missed and stuff like that? So we tried really to land ourselves on our review committee. This is the review committee for this year. Great people, each and every one of them, with a lot of help. And if we try to switch the committee to shift this review committee every year so that we have new ideas and new people and new approaches. But every single year we go back to Jerry Weinberg. He actually, Lalit knows him, and he's very insightful on what's going on in there, and he always provides us quite a lot of feedback, ideas. Again, he sometimes tells us that we're doing something not right, so we also try to include everything that we can from what he's doing. So again, a lot of thanks to Jerry Weinberg itself. So this is the context about the state of testing, so that you understand where the numbers and where the insights are coming. And just to summarize about the state of testing, because we're going to be talking about the report and the information that we got from the 2018 state of testing. So first thing to take into account is that I'm going to be talking about trends. Some of these trends include data from 5 years. As we're moving the information or moving the type of questions or modifying the questions, some of them will be for less years. But again, we do have quite a lot of information year over year over year. For this year's report, we had 1,433 people answering the survey. So yes, we have a large population of people answering from, it's not from a single place, from 83 countries. Obviously, there was distribution. Some countries had more people, some countries had less people, less testers, so they answered less. But again, we had a very nice distribution. And overall on this report, even though we didn't publish all the questions, but we did ask 42 different questions on the survey, the report has less. Okay, sometimes we see that questions can be mixed, and sometimes we see the questions are irrelevant. And again, 42 is a very large number. So thanks for all the almost 1,500 people who answered. But again, these are very important questions. And again, we really, really like the way that we're able to get insights into what's going on. Obviously, you're asking yourself, hey, Joel's talking about the state of testing. Where can you get it? Very simple. You can go to the QA Intelligence blog, that is qablog.practice.com. And you can go to /state of testing, or just go to qablogpractice.com and you will see a menu that goes to the state of testing. And again, it's free to download. So feel free to use it, abuse it, communicate it, share it, whatever you want to do with it. Go ahead and do it, because we do it for the community. And the more people who know about the state of testing, the better, because we get more feedback and more inputs and more collaborations year over year. And the idea is that we will continue doing this project for the next years as well. But what we want to do today is go over some of the lessons that we are seeing out of this survey, out of this report. And these are insights that come not only from the raw data, but from analyzing the raw data and talking to people and looking into what's going on around the community, so that we can understand if there are things that we can learn from, maybe prepare for them, maybe adapt ourselves. But these are things that are going to be cardinal for everyone in the testing community in the years to come. Okay, and the important thing is that we're trying to back them up with data, so that we also know what to do about it. So we will talk about, again, you might find more, obviously you will on this large report, but I wanted to focus on a small number of important things that I believe will be vital for us as testers in the coming years. So the first lesson actually comes from a new question that we ask, and I said that every year we have new people bringing new ideas. So we start asking this question. I'm not sure we didn't ask it before, but we asked people who answered the survey, what percentage of your job actually goes into testing? Assuming that for some of them, they have other tasks as part of their jobs that are not necessarily testing. And these are the answers. As you can see, 54% of people said that between 75% and 100% of their job is to test. 21% of the respondents says between 50 and 75%. 12% says between 12 and 50%, and another 12% said that only about a quarter of their time is actually defined as testing. Now, why is this important? This is important, this is interesting because of this. If you notice, we have almost half, about 45% of people responding saying that they're not only doing testing. It might look trivial for you, but if I imagine that if we were to ask the same question 5 years ago, we would have seen a lower number of respondents saying that. Even more interesting is that 24%, let's say 25%, are saying that less than half their time or less is going to testing, and the other half of their time is already going into something else, okay? By definition, it's going into something else. What does this mean for us? Well, it basically means that in the future, you won't be able to focus yourself only in testing. I believe that this trend that we're seeing here will continue to grow. We will see that people will start doing more and more of their jobs as not only testing, but doing other things. And so if you will want to continue being relevant in your role, you cannot be only a tester, okay? If you're looking 5 years from now, 10 years from now, maybe 15 years from now, you need to start looking for additional tasks, for additional things within your organization that will fill other needs, okay? We'll talk a little bit more about those other needs, but the important thing is that if up to now, I remember people ask you, hey, what are you doing? And if the answer was not testing, then you might have gotten reprimanded because, hey, you're here to test and you're to bottleneck testing. Now that's not necessarily the case. People are expecting you to do other things. And if you're going to be doing a single-minded specialist doing only testing, then you might not have a job to do within that team because people will need more flexible and malleable and multitasking individuals out there. Okay, so this is lesson number 1. Now, lesson number 2, it's completely not related to what we just saw. I went to another one of the questions, okay? And one of the things that we were asking also, and we have been asking this for quite a lot of time, what is the size of your testing team? How many testers do you have in your organization? Now, the interesting part, well, you can see the answers. You can see that over 51 testers is 11%, between 16 and 50 is 15%, 6 to 15 is 28%, and 1 to 5 is 46%. Interesting thing is that testing teams are getting smaller year after year after year. If 2 years ago we had about 60% of people saying that they work on teams that are 15 testers or less, and this would be something like these two numbers together, we're seeing that number going up and up and up all the time. So we need to understand that this is something that will continue growing and growing. Why is this important? This is important for people who are looking at their career development as in the testing community. I remember when I just started being a tester and then I became a test lead and then a test manager, the way that you advance in your career was either you become a QA manager or a QA lead, or you went over to development, okay? And that was the only way that you could actually advance yourself in testing. What we're seeing is that as testers are being inserted or sucked into agile teams, into multi-disciplinary agile or scrum teams, then the role of the test lead and the test manager is actually shifting. QA managers are becoming more coaches, and we're seeing that the need for test leads is going down. And so if you want to look into your career development as a tester, you cannot look at it only within the prisma of becoming a QA manager, because that role is becoming less and less common as the teams turn more into agile and into unified development teams. Okay, so the second lesson to take a look into is that we need to start seeing into our career development paths as not limited only to management. And if you want to see it into management, again, I have been seeing quite a lot of testers and test leads that are becoming development managers. Again, that's a great thing to do, but it's not a QA manager, so you need to look into it a little bit different than what you have been doing up to now. Lesson number 3, and the data sets for lesson number 3, they go back a little bit into what we were talking from lesson number 1. Lesson number 3 actually comes into what are the non-traditional testing tasks and the non-traditional and the additional tasks that are being done by testers. Okay, and we ask people, hey, look at yourself as a tester. What are you doing? And this on the left side of the screen. What are you doing that is not necessarily testing? This is a second question that we go, well, maybe these are more kind of closer to testing questions, but what other task are you doing that is not necessarily just testing the application? Okay, I want you to take a couple of seconds just to look into the type of answers that were given on both questions. Remember, this is like, hey, out of curiosity, what else have you been doing? And this is what other things are you doing. Notice that in the right side, it can be more than 100% because some people said, hey, I'm doing both this and this and this maybe. So if you took a while to look into that, the points that caught my eye is that we're looking into all sorts of different things. For example, on the left, what caught my eye is that testers are becoming more product owners. Again, we're working within agile teams. We are the customer advocate, so it's very logical for us to become product owners within our agile teams. Or, hey, we're actually releasing in iterative processes and we do have either beta customers or we're releasing to customers all the time and we need to talk to customers all the time, managing the release process. So all of that is very logical for testers to be doing. On the other hand, on the hand of maybe more development / testing tasks that you could be doing, then you see quite a lot of things that are close to testing, but more around what I like to call test enablement. Okay, like for example, hey, my developers are doing some testing, but they need to have good data management, so we're providing it to them. Or we are, because the testing team already knows how to manage the testing environment, so we are helping both testers and developers to create their own environments. Something that I really, really like, and I do believe that this is the future of testing. And if you heard about testing and development or testing in production, that means that you're releasing the product into production and you're continuing to monitor the system and to understand how the system is performing. So you're going to be seeing quite a lot of analysis of production and other user data, as well as monitoring production environments. So these are places where it's very logical and very natural for testers to go into. And if we were mentioning that you cannot be a tester that is basically testing the application day in, day out, all of these are additional ideas of things that you could be doing in order to enlarge the amount of services that you can provide as a tester as part of your team. This actually, it's a little bit interesting, and this is lesson number 3, sorry for that. Many people think that if they want to do additional stuff as a tester, they need to go to scripting. They need to go and write test scripts. Guys, if you look here, yes, test automation is still 76% of what people are saying other than testing that they're doing. I believe that this number is a little bit high, but again, I'm not going to argue with those numbers. I prefer to focus on the other ones. So yes, one of the things that you could be doing is doing test automation or scripting, but I do believe that for most places, tweaking the code is enough, okay? You don't necessarily need to be doing only scripting or moving into automation in order to advance in your career. There are quite a lot of things that you can also do, and I mentioned them, become a customer advocate or a product owner. Something that I really like, again, more people are going to be doing testing. Developers are going to be doing testing, product owners are going to be doing testing, but these guys might not know exactly how to test. So you can become a test coach. You can train them. You can make sure that as they're testing, you can show them how to do it better, because they will have that need. They'll come and say, hey, you know what? The reason that I'm going to test is because I don't know how to test like you do. No problem. Let me coach you into doing that. Okay. One of the things that I really like seeing is testers becoming Scrum Masters within their Scrum teams. I think that it's a natural position for testers. Coordinating releases, as I mentioned, doing product data analysis. All of these are additional tasks that provide quite a lot of value into your team that is not necessarily testing. And again, it's not only scripting, it's not only automation, it's not only functional automation or load automation, any way you want to call it. There are additional things for those testers that might be a little bit less technical. Still, you will be working with code. Something that I try to tell everyone is you need to know how to tweak code. You don't need to know how to write functions, but you shouldn't be afraid of taking any script and knowing how to change it a little bit more. Just look for other things that might be a little bit more natural for you on those areas. Lesson number 4, okay? And again, looking again into different data from the state of testing. And something that I want to say, I think that I forgot to mention before, but if you have any questions or something that comes out of the presentation, stuff like that, go ahead, you have a Q&A option within Zoom. And if you want to ask anything, go ahead and do it. I will look into those questions at the end of the session and answer anything that you might want to ask. So the data for lesson number 4 actually comes from another completely different question that we have been asking people for quite a lot of years. And we have data here for 3 years, but we've been asking that earlier than that. And that is, what testing approaches and what testing methodologies are you doing, okay? How are you testing, basically? Now, there's something very interesting that I see in here. And that is that if you look at it, there was a time where everyone, again, 2 years ago, everyone was saying, hey, 87% of people were already doing exploratory testing. And we've seen that number go down a little bit. Again, it's not quite a lot, but you do see a regular number of people just saying, or less people saying that they're doing exploratory testing. On the other hand, and again, scripted testing is that testing where you're basically writing the steps up front and running that. So we saw that 2 years ago, it was about 60%. It went down a little bit, and then it went up quite significantly last year. So we're seeing a little bit of a resurgence. And we're also seeing other stuff still in important numbers, like bug hunts and pair testing and simulation testing. So the important thing here is that we're seeing that testers are actually blending their testing types. And this takes us to lesson number 4. And again, I think that many of us are already doing it, but I think we should do it more consciously. I like this allegory, or this way of looking at it, and that is that you need to have more than hammers in your toolbox, okay? You need to use different types of testing in order to be able to test in a more efficient way, in a more effective way. Okay, so we do have exploratory testing, we do have scripted testing. I think that most of us are already doing that, but this is only the beginning. We have quite a lot of additional things that we can do. And what I like to put in here is that we need to think out of the box. Many times we feel that testing, or the type of testing that we're doing, it's only when we execute the actual functions and we look for bugs. But what I'm trying to tell you is that we can also get quite a lot of data around validation of your product from other places, like usage data. If you can see, for example, your system's already in production, and you can see how much people are using specific areas on your product, then you can see if those areas of your product actually answer to your user needs. So for example, you have, let's say you have reporting in your product. Now, you don't expect people to work with reporting every day, but you do expect them to create a report once a week. If you're seeing that people are creating reports less than once a week, maybe once a month, maybe once every 2 months, then you can assume that your reporting engine is not as intuitive, not as good as you would want it to be. Obviously, you have stuff like log files. If you have error messages coming in your log files in your application, then you can go over that. You can do customer surveys, user forums, alerts on Google. Remember, going back to the data, an area that I expect to be going up more and more and more, it's analytics of product telemetry. Product telemetry is basically putting monitoring in your servers, in your systems, and then going over that data that is generated by that telemetry system and understanding if people are working with your system in the way that you expected them to work. Okay, remember, quality, it's not only lack of bugs. Quality, it's customer happiness. Okay, so if people are happy with your product, they will be using it quite a lot, and they will be able to see that as part of your telemetry. So try to provide as much information as you can by expanding that toolbox that you have. And it's not only about scripted testing, it's not only about exploratory testing, it's not even only about testing. Okay, it's about how do you provide data to validate whether your product has an expected level of quality as reflected by the usage of your users on it, okay? So this would be, in this case, lesson number 4. Lesson number 5 actually goes through another part of testing, and this is another part of testing that I think that many of us don't do as much as we should be doing, and this is static testing activities. Now, earlier in the week, I was making this presentation, and as it happened, my wife, who's a project manager, in a large high-tech company, came and said, "Hey, you know what? We're talking here about testing, and people were talking about code reviews and stuff like that. Is it something that actually happens in nature?" And well, you can see the answer is here. Yes, people are doing code reviews as static analysis, but it's not only about code reviews. A lot of people think that static analysis is when you have a system that will actually go over your code and will look for all these loops and bad code that needs to be taken out. But there's quite a lot of additional static testing you can do. Remember, the definition of static testing is to basically go over something that is not the code and try to find if these actually works based on the quality that you're expecting. So if you do requirement analysis and you try to make sure that the requirements of your product actually align and that you don't have any type of mix-ups or requirements that are not close or requirements that are basically conflicting with one another, you can actually do it. I love retrospectives. If you're working in an agile team, and you can see it's going a little bit down or staying about 50%. So guys, this doesn't make sense. If we have 80% of people working agile, but only 50% of people doing retrospectives. If you're not doing retrospectives, you're not doing agile. The idea of agile is doing iterative development where at the end of each iteration, you basically review what you're doing right, you keep it, what you're doing wrong, you modify. That is a retrospective. So retrospectives are great, great tools, and this is a static testing activity. You go over your process and you're basically trying to review it. Obviously, design reviews, code reviews, static code analysis is what I was talking before when you go over your code and it's being reviewed by a tool. All of that is interesting. Guys, a word around code reviews. I see many testers saying that they cannot do code reviews because they do not know how to code. You couldn't be any more wrong than that. One of the cool things about code reviews, and I do it quite a lot, you sit with a developer and you said, hey, don't explain to me what each function does, like within the function. Take me over your code and take me over the flow of your code. Okay, so this is going to be your positive scenario. Cool. This is going to be your negative scenario. Let's think about other negative scenarios and let's make sure that your code on a static way, on a review way, can actually work with all of those things. And it's great because more times than not, when you start asking a developer, hey, did you think about this case? You will see the oh boy moment when they say, no, I actually haven't. And yes, that is a logical thing that we need to take care of. And so they go, and even before you press the single first button on the application, you were already able to find bugs on the product and have them corrected. So all of your static testing activities, they're incredibly worth it. They're very, very easy to do. And I recommend that each and every one of you, if at least you will be able to do code reviews and retrospectives, the amount of value that you will be providing to your teams, it will be enormous, okay? And if they're not doing them, then it's going to be even better. Okay, as I mentioned before, quite a lot of things that I see testers doing, they're taking the roles of Scrum Masters, and so they're leading the retrospectives. You can do some coaching on quality assurance. Go ahead and look into what's going on in here. That's very important, and this basically translates that lesson number 5 is to start switching or expanding from only testing into quality. And I remember this discussion all the time. Hey, are we testers or are we quality engineers? I don't really care. I know that we're in charge here of helping our team to deliver a more quality product. So if this is what it's called, shift left, or to focus on prevention versus detection, or being a quality engineer instead of a tester, it's not that important. It's basically trying to say, hey, I'm going to look into the process that we're doing. I'm going to look for other quality-related feedback opportunities and operations that I can do, and I will just go ahead and do it. Okay, and it reflects once again into the look for places where you can provide additional value and go and provide that value. Okay, so lesson number 5 is shift left, shift right, prevent instead of detect, do whatever you can in order to provide additional value to what your team can actually be doing, and additional feedback to what your team can actually be doing. Now, these are the 5 lessons that I originally thought to bring from the state of testing, but then I looked into the report once again and I said, hey, why do we need to stop at 5? And the reason that I decided not to stop at 5 was because something actually caught my eye. One of the things that I love about the state of testing is that we also ask open questions. And open questions are questions where we don't have like a select out of this list of things that you would be doing, or ordering in order of importance, what's more important or less important, stuff like that. This is where we actually ask open questions to people. It's a lot harder to review the answers because then you have 1,500 answers that each one has different text, and you need to go over it and analyze them. It takes quite a lot of time. On the other hand, you're usually surprised with the answers that you get because you didn't put people on a frame of reference and just told them, hey, this is the answer that I want from you. You're basically saying, give me your answers from your heart. So the first answer, or the additional lesson that I want to bring, it's actually a lesson for managers. Every manager that we have in here, any QA lead or stuff like that, one of the open questions that we ask all the time is a question that we ask testers, and it says, hey, from your testing perspective, what would you change in your job in order to make it better? Okay, how could you make your future as a tester better than what it is right now? These are only part of the answers that we got. The ones that draw my attention more than the rest of here, and again, these are like aggregations of answers because we couldn't put all of them there, are these 4 ones that we have in here. And if you're a manager and you want to think how you can make the life of your tester better, then this is where I believe you should be actually focused. First of all, go ahead and try to give testers the time and space that they need in order to learn more stuff. We're all the time asking people to improve what they're doing, to learn more things. You need to put your mouth or your money where your mouth is. Okay, if you're asking someone to learn something more, it shouldn't be outside of the work hours. It can be 2 hours each day or a day a week, but try to actually give people legitimacy to go and learn more things. Another one that is not trivial is not only send people to test, but try to explain why are they testing. Now, it may sound insignificant, but when you explain people why they're testing what they're testing, first of all, they will be able to provide you feedback and say, hey, why don't we test this and this and this? Or maybe why don't we stop testing this and this and that, because it's not that important. So people will be able to do not only better testing, but more intelligent testing at that. And it will also give them more motivation. Again, we're not robots. Every tester wants to understand what value they're providing. And so we should focus more on why are they testing whatever they're testing, and not only on go ahead and test what you have in there. Another one that we had in here is that people want to get more understanding of what the testers are doing to other people in their team. Developers and product managers or scrum masters or people outside of the testing groups don't really understand what the testers are doing. If people don't understand what we're doing, they don't know how to provide value to that. They don't know what can they do to help us. And that is the charter, that is the objective of the manager, to make sure that they are advocates and representatives of what we're doing internally to other people. So if people in your team feel that other teams do not know what they're doing, what you are doing, then that is your job as a manager to do a better job. And also, again, something else that should be put in place, and if we're talking about expanding the roles of tester, is better teamwork that actually puts the focus of testers in additional places. So if it's going to be understanding from customers what they need, or if it's going to be, let's say, telemetry and then monitoring to the system that is being delivered, all of that is important. And this is a task that a good manager should actually be aware of and should be pushing for as part of the testing community. By the way, there's a question here. It says that I mentioned 1,433 responses. And the question is that for 2018 or for the whole 5 years? No, guys, that's only for 2018. Okay, don't remember the numbers for the previous years, but I know that the year before it was about 1,380, I think. Last year was, again, this year was 1,433, and we're basically growing every single year. So sorry for stopping that, but that's a question that was asked, and I can just answer it before. If you have other questions, go ahead and ask them. Now, an additional, if we're looking here as a manager, how can I do the world better? Then let's also focus as a tester, okay? As a tester, what we ask managers is, what are you looking for when you hire a tester? So if you're a tester that is looking for a job or that is looking to make a better job in the eyes of their managers, how can you do it better? Or how can you actually land that job that you really, really like on that interview? Or what skills do you need to improve in order to be better at what you're doing? Obviously, there are quite a lot. Many of them I already mentioned. But these are the ones that, for me, actually, again, if I'm a manager, these are the ones that I'm going to be looking at. Obviously, communication skills. Now, what are communication skills? Communication skills is not only speaking nicely. It's about active listening. It's about paying attention. It's about communicating with clarity. And I remember here, James Bach, and if you don't know who James Bach is, please go ahead and look him up. He's one of the greatest testers there is today. James Bach once told me, and I guess he tells quite a lot of people, one of the biggest things and most important things that a tester needs to know how to do is at any given point in time to explain what he's doing and what has he found. Okay, he needs to know how to communicate clearly on what he has done or she has done and what findings have they found. Okay, because remember, we're not here to test for ourselves. We're here to test in order to provide value for additional people in our team. So communication skills and clarity are incredibly important. Now, other things that might sound trivial or weird, I really like testers who had positive and good attitude. And I love that the other managers also look for that. A lot of people think that because we're looking for bugs and we need to be pessimistic and stuff like that. No, you need actually to be very, very positive and have a good attitude into what you're doing, because if you found the bug, it's not going to be the end of the world. And if you're going to be communicating that you found the bug to other developers, then you need to know how to communicate it in a good way, on a positive way. It's not like, whoo, we found the bug and you lost. It's about, hey, this is a bug. Let's actually see how can we actually solve it together. And it goes over to problem solving and adaptability. And it's not about only, hey, I found the bug, I'm going to show you how to solve it. It's about, okay, so we have this next challenge. We need to test X, Y, and Z, and we only have time to test 2 things. So how can we actually solve this challenge that we have in here? How can we adapt in order to be better? So all of that is very, very important. And because I want to leave a couple of minutes for additional Q&As, then again, being a team player for me, it's incredibly important. And if you're a single tester in a company, that means that it's even more important to be a team player, because you need to be a team player with players who might not want to be in your team. You need to be a team player with your developers. And obviously, you need the ability to understand the needs of the business, and maybe what's not written here, the changing needs of the business, because if there's something that it's always going to be happening in business, is that they will change their needs constantly, because again, the market changes constantly. So if you're a tester who might be looking for a job or who wants to advance in your career, this might be the first list of things that I would work on as a tester myself. So to sum it up, the 5-ish, 6, 7 lessons that we learned from the State of Test in 2018, and again, there are quite a lot more than that, but the ones that I brought here are the following one. First of all, you cannot continue focusing only on testing. 2018, 2020, you need to expand the value that you're providing, not only focus on testing. If you continue focusing only on testing, quickly enough, other people will have more value than you will be able to provide to your team. Career development should not be limited only to management. And I mentioned that before. If you're looking to expand as a tester, if you're looking, hey, where do I want to be 5 years from now, 10 years from now? Yeah, sure. If you want to be a QA manager, go ahead, but be ready if that job becomes more scarce, or if that job actually changes quite a lot into becoming a QA coach or a QA consultant within your company. Because as we're seeing more and more testing teams being absorbed into agile teams, then that job will continue diminishing. And again, some people will continue having QA managers and large testing teams and testing organizations, but I think that the norm will be a little bit different moving forwards from now. Scripting is not the only additional value of a tester. And I mentioned that quite a lot of time. You need to look for other places where you can provide value. If it's going to be telemetry, if it's going to be managing environments, if it's going to be making sure that people have the right data, if it's going to be coaching your other team members, look for other places where you can provide value. And it's not only going to be creating scripts or writing automation. That used to be the case. Maybe it never was the case, but it's definitely not the case right now. Your toolbox needs more than only hammers. Don't only do exploratory testing and scripted testing. Do other things as well. Look for gathering data about quality of your product, not only using testing. Look for other places where you can have that type of data and bring it into the tool. You will be providing quite a lot of value. It's also time to shift the conversation from testing into quality. So if it's going to be shifting left and trying to do more static analysis, if it's going to be shifting right and working with production data, if it's going to be shifting up and working with management, remember, we have always been asking for that chance not to be test engineers, but to be quality assurance people. This is the time in order to do it. And last but not least, if you want to be managers or testers that are going to be happy, go ahead and focus on your and their needs. If it's going to be for testers, make sure that they understand what they're doing. Make sure that you give them the tools, the time to do the things that they're doing. And if we're going to be talking with managers, remember that they also have needs. And if you want your manager to be happy, try to understand what are their needs. Okay, if they need people to communicate better, if they need people to work with other team members, look for all of those things and try to actually help them out on that. Okay? And again, these are the 5-ish lessons that we have in there, and I'll be happy to take a couple questions that we have in here. There's a question here that was asked, I guess that it was when I was talking about more than one method for testing, and the question is, what are bug hunts and how are they different from exploratory testing sessions? They're very, very, very different. And again, people call bug hunts or bug parties different things. For me, I will start from exploratory session. Exploratory testing is where when you as a single tester, maybe in pairwise exploratory testing sessions, but I like it a little bit less, you're going to start to explore the system, learn the system, find bugs of the system, documenting the steps and the bugs that you're doing as you're actually running the system itself. So it's basically, again, it's an exploratory testing session. Bug hunts are a little bit different. Bug hunts are activities where you're going to be taking usually people from the business and outside of the business. You're going to be pairing between a tester and a developer, a tester and product manager, even a tester and a customer, and you're going to be giving them tasks in order to go ahead and simply find bugs. Okay? And you're basically doing it on very informal scenarios like parties or contests where you're even given prizes. I actually wrote a blog post on bug hunts, and if you send me an email, I'll be happy to send you a link for that. But yes, it's true when you're doing bug hunts that you're using some exploratory testing methods, but these are completely different objectives and completely different things. For example, exploratory testing I would do on every stage of my testing efforts. Bug hunts I usually do it only towards the end when the product is stable enough so that I will have people actually being able to find those bugs in there. Another question in here, with the role of testers evolving to include other non-test related tasks, is there a danger of our profession dying out? I guess in other words, the question is testing dead? For sure, testing is not dead. For sure, people will need to test and to continue testing all the time. The question of whether the role of that person who the only thing that they do is to test, whether that role is actually dying out, I think that it will. I'm not sure that it has. I think that many organizations still, and it might be half organizations or 75% of teams, still want to have people who see themselves or that they are able to see as only testers or mainly testers doing other stuff. But as we see more and more teams turning into agile, if we see more and more teams that are basically having shorter cycles where you cannot put all the testing into one phase, or that you need to have more people doing testing or other people in the team doing testing, then you will see that that person who up to now was doing only testing will need to start doing other things, will need to start wearing other hats. So the role of testing is definitely not dying, even of manual testing, of exploratory testing, of heuristic-based testing is not dying, definitely not dying. But the time when we used to have someone who used to be doing only testing and only manual testing, I think that the days are numbered. It might be numbered on years. It might be 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. But I think that the population is actually shifting into other places, okay? And I don't see these as something that we need to be sad about or worried about. I see this as an opportunity. Because if I look at myself and I look at myself now, or I look at myself 20 years ago, quite a lot of the things that interested me were not only running test cases. In my case, it was quite a lot working with customers and working with customer-based data. In that case, it would be telemetry. I see other people who like to test, but also like to tweak code. I see other people who like to test, but also like to work with developers and people from other teams. So I do see us being more T-shaped, E-shaped, broken, comp-shaped. And so that means that we will be more diverse than we have been up to now. Okay, and I hope that I was able to answer that question correctly. So guys, once again, because we're running out of time, if you want to get the state of testing report, and again, you don't need to have only my answers or get only my insights. I really, really recommend that you go ahead and download that report. Again, it's free. You don't need to do anything about it. You can go ahead and read it and review it. You can download every one of the previous reports. They're also there. And the idea is that you go ahead and make your own mind, become your own tester, and try to understand, hey, if you understand where the testing community is today and where it is heading, if you're ready for that, then you always obviously will have a better future than if you're only like doing the same thing time and time again. Okay, testing is changing. You might as well be ready for those changes. I really hope that this helped you in a way or two. If you want to get in touch with me, this is the way to do it. That is my personal email. I read all the emails. I try to answer to most of them. Might be not at the same time, but if you have any question, go ahead and send it. You can look me up on Twitter. I'm at Joel Monte on Twitter. And as I mentioned a couple of times, this is my QA blog. And I do want to thank you for your time. And again, I hope that it was useful for you. It was definitely fun for me. So thank you very much. And until the next time, guys, this is Joel. And I hope that we'll be in touch later on. Bye-bye, and have a great one.